Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, Chair.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Strong Community Select Committee meeting. It's Thursday, the 29th of July. I'm Sheila Woodhouse, Chairman of this committee, and I thank you for joining us today. We have officers and members joining us, so if you would like to introduce yourselves as we go through the agenda when you wish to speak. The first item I have on the agenda is apologies for absence, which I've received from Councillor Peter Clark. I don't hear of any others, unless anybody wants to submit any now as we live stream. Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest is next on the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Eason. We do have on our agenda a public open forum, and this is an area where we do really want people to join us and submit questions. However, on this occasion, at the last meeting, we received a question, a letter, but it was outside of the time that we need to pass this information on to officers for a response. We do have on our agenda and on our website a request for 3 clear working days for information to be able to be collated in response to questions, and we are sorry that on this occasion once again we will have to go back directly to the person. It was a community council who's asked for some information upon joint working between Monmouthshire County Council and National Resources Wales, which our officers will look at now and respond directly to the community council. So apologies for that, but we do really want people to be involved in these meetings and feel involved, but please submit your questions early. Thank you.
Could we be included in the... Yes, sorry. Have we got a hand on today or not? No, I don't know. Well, could we be included in the response, please?
Yes, of course. Yeah. I'll ask the officers to take that in hand. Yes, thank you.
I can't find a hand. I don't know.
Well, I think we will be having the hands put in the chat bar for the individual agenda items.
Lovely. Radio.
So the first item on the agenda, item number 4, is performance reporting, and I'm going to invite Emma Davis to update us on this item. Emma compiles a report, as she will explain to us now, but we do have officers available to answer any questions. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning all. My name is Emma Davis, Performance Officer for Monmouthshire County Council. This report is to provide an annual update on progress made during 2020-21 on corporate plan goals C, maximise the potential of the natural and built environment, and also goal E, future focused council, to ensure members have an understanding of council performance and can scrutinise how well the authority has performed. As you'll be aware, the corporate plan is a 5-year programme that is aligned to a clear purpose of building sustainable and resilient communities. It identifies 5 priority goals, which also serve as the Council's wellbeing objectives. Under each goal are a set of commitments to action, there are 22 in total, which the organisation is committed to delivering between now and 2022. The report has 2 appendices. The first shows our performance management framework, which illustrates how all of the various strands fit together in our performance reporting. As such, a lot of the information should be familiar to you that's in the report, having already been through the scrutiny process during the year. Appendix 2 provides a summary of activity and progress made in 2020-21 against the goals in the corporate plan that fall most closely under the remit of this committee, like I say, goal C and also goal E. The past year has been an unprecedented one, and some of the aims within the plan have been paused or have progressed at a slower pace than intended. Each commitment has been allocated a progress rating, and also an overall rating has been provided for the goals themselves. So for both goal C and E, we've allocated a rating of 3, which is adequate. It's important to point out that these ratings relate to the activity and progress against the commitments themselves, so they don't necessarily illustrate the significant activities that have been undertaken during the year to support the pandemic response. A few examples of some of the information in the report for you. Under Goal C, the adaptations to our waste and recycling processes aimed at continuing the improvement in recycling behaviours seen over the past 12 months. The considerable activity undertaken to support the active travel offer in the county, and also the advancements in our speed reduction measures and road safety initiatives. And under Goal E, the refurbishment of Abergavenny Town Council, which now houses the library and the one-stop shop, into a far more accessible space. The huge amount of work that has seen our decision-making process adapt to be entirely remote and digital. And finally, the developments in the ways of working for council staff and the range of support mechanisms that have been introduced to ensure that everyone is able to continue doing their job safely and effectively. Ordinarily, the report would also include performance information on a range of nationally set measures used by all councils in Wales. And this would identify how Monmouthshire County Council's performance benchmarks with other councils in Wales. However, due to the impact of the pandemic, this information is limited for 2020-21, so it doesn't provide an adequate amount of detail to support the analysis of performance. However, we have gathered this internally where it is available alongside our local measures, and this information is presented with additional information where the figures don't necessarily align with previous years to provide a wider context and a bit of an explanation for you. Finally, a report on the progress against all 5 of our priority goals will be presented to Council in September, with a requirement for publication of the report by the end of October as per the Local Government Wales measure. That's everything from me, Chair, so pass it back to yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to ask members if they'd like to submit some questions or make some comments. I'm just waiting for the raised hand facility in the chat bar. I've just received a message that it's not available, so I'm going to have to ask members to indicate in the chat bar themselves, please, if they wish to speak or ask questions on this item. Just pop a little message in the chat bar. I've got mine open. We're having some technical issues this morning. Right, I've got Councillor Tony Eason. Can I invite you to speak?
Yeah.
Ask your question.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Emma, for your report. You say you've got a progress evaluation of 3 is adequate. What is the top rating for a progress evaluation? That's one general question at the end. The main question I got is about the recycling, the way we are with recycling in terms of the reuse and not what. How are we faring? And as a question for Carl, I understand the Newport City Council recycling got a national award for their recycling centres. Were we in the running for anything like that? That's my general question on recycling, and I'd like to come back about roads later on when we get to that point in the discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, shall I take the first question from Councillor Eason? The ratings for the goal range from 1 to 6, with 6 being excellent or outstanding, where all performance measures have achieved the target set and all actions have been delivered.
Are we able to get to 6?
It's in our rating scale, so I would like to think that it would be a possibility, Councillor, yes.
Okay, I'll watch this space there. Thank you.
Okay, and Carl for the second question, please.
Hi, Councillor. Yeah, so this year or last year we achieved 68.4% recycling. Yeah. So that's 4.4% in front of the target for this year, of last year. The reuse shops, Llanffoist and 5 lanes are now open and up and running and doing very well, and much appreciated by the local communities that are using them. So The reuse is also growing in the county, and it's making a real improvement when when people are using the sites and keeping material separate. We didn't put ourselves forward this year for any awards, purely down to the amount of resources we had within the team and trying to keep the services running. So we focused on getting the shops open, applying for bids. We've also started the the library of things and the repair cafes this year. So it's just too much of a resource on us to start applying for awards as well. So
okay,
hope that covers it off.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Carl. Can I ask my last question, Chair?
Yes, Carl, your camera didn't appear to come on then. I think it may be a technical hitch.
I'm
but
sorry, Chair. Yes,
sorry, if you could.
Yes, I'm on now.
Camera's on.
Good morning, everybody. County Councillor Maurice and Caldecott. I apologise for not having the camera on a minute ago. On page 12 of the report, I don't know who's going to answer this one. It's to do with the road, percentage of roads in poor condition. How do you qualify the percentages you come up with? Because there's a lot of angst among the public about the state of our roads, yet statistically, they're not that bad. Statistically, how do you measure roads in a poor condition? What is your yardstick, as I might say, for that? Whoever's going to answer that. Thank you. I'm sorry about the camera, Chair.
All right. Who would like to answer that for us, please? Mark is online. Oh, but Mark's having technical difficulties as well. Oh,
well, leave that later.
We can come back to that, perhaps.
Yeah.
Chair, yes. I can't give an in-depth answer. That's all I know. It is one of our national performance indicators. So as far as my limited understanding goes, that there's a range of areas that are included that are stipulated to us. I don't know whether Mark might be able to come in later to give you a far better explanation, but that's my limited understanding of it.
Right. Thank you, Emma.
Okay.
I was rather surprised to see that. Those figures, because it made it sound as though the roads are in improved condition, but of course at the time this was carried out I can only think that we had less traffic on the road because of the pandemic, but the traffic has gone the other way now. It is really increased. So perhaps when Mark is available we can have a few answers to those questions. Thank you. Right, do we have any further questions from members? I think it's just proving very challenging this morning to access this.
He just dropped off.
Nothing else in the chat bar? Something I would like to just point out that I noticed when I was going through the report with regard to the reduction of the, I don't know who would be available to answer this, with regard to biodiversity, how we are measuring the council's reduction in carbon emissions, because that is very, very important, and it's currently not available, but I'm wondering when this might be available and how it's going to be measured, and if other authorities do some, how they do theirs, if it's something we could look at to see how we compare with other authorities. That's with biodiversity. Another item which I really would like to sort of ask officers to look at regarding communications. The My Monmouthshire app is brilliant. All of the work that's been carried out with digitally has been fantastic, because everybody has adapted and learned to do things differently. I just wish there was some way we could follow up all the reports that we put on the My Monmouthshire app. We do get feedback via the email saying completed, work done, passed to another agency, but it would be very helpful if we could just go into something we've previously reported. If work hasn't been done, if we could follow up. So that was a question regarding communications from me. And the last one from me, scrutiny. There's a reference to new working arrangements. I wondered if we had any sort of feedback on that yet, any indication of what the new working arrangements are. Thank you. I see Francis has come on to help answer some questions.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhouse. With regard to the biodiversity aspect, I don't know whether Carl will be able to provide any commentary on that, but if not, I'll ask somebody from the Green Infrastructure team to provide you with a response afterwards. I don't think anybody from OneLife was able to join us today, so I apologise for that. With regards to communications and the customer demands and engagement, what we are seeing at the moment is unprecedented demand coming in through all channels, whether that's our call centre, MindMem, directly through to officers, letters, correspondence through to letter members. It's been absolutely phenomenal, the step up that we're seeing in terms of volume of inquiries. And one of the things that we're going to work with the Digital Programme Office, headed up by Emma Jackson, with Carl, Mark, myself and a number of key officers in the teams, is to take a bit of a review of that, because I think your point there, Councillor Woodhouse, is really valid, that we're finding that people are coming to us through lots of different mechanisms, and we're struggling to be able to respond to all of those or to close them down. You're right, people get the automated My Monmouthshire response on certain inquiries that come in, and we think that we've got potentially too many of those automated responses, and the mechanism for providing closure and feedback needs to be improved. So that's a project that we're going to pick up in this financial year to work on. We'll most probably pick a couple of key areas, Chair, which will be relevant for the Strong Communities portfolio in terms of places, things like highways and waste being the biggest areas that we see the biggest volume of demand, to see if we can start to improve some of that communications and customer engagement and dialogue, because it's not working as effectively as we'd like it to. The point about the changing spaces, changing working practices, Chief Officer for People Services and Governance, Matt Phillips, he's overseeing that project, and we're still working through that. Staff engagement sessions are ongoing to feed into that process, and that will be something that will be very much iterative over the next forthcoming period as we test out some different places and spaces and how we can work in a different way. We're thinking about how we have collaborative working spaces, project working spaces, and how we can get to a point where if you categorise our workers, you've got some people who are on-the-go workers. So, take a highways operative, they're on the go, they're not fixed in terms of that location because they're out and about across the country, so we call them our on-the-go workers. You've got your fixed workers then who are place-based, so perhaps a receptionist, or maybe somebody who needs to be fixed to a depot as an example, or a hub. And then your anywhere workers, so somebody like myself, I can work anywhere. I can work from home, I can work from an office, I can work from a depot. I don't need to be fixed to a specific location. So all of those things need to feature in what the future of our workforce and how we're going to operate is going to look. So it's a piece of work that's ongoing, Chair, that hasn't come to a conclusion yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that explanation. That's excellent, and we'll look forward to receiving the other information as and when it's available. Perhaps you could circulate it to Hazel and Robert, and they can circulate it to all our members. Similarly, I think perhaps Councillor Easton, we could do that with your question regarding roads. We could perhaps ask Mark Hunter to submit a reply to Hazel, which she can forward to us and Robert. Right, Councillor Webb, thank you, Councillor Easton. You've indicated.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see officers and members here this morning. Apologise, I did have a problem with connecting earlier on, and thank you very much for those who helped me. Just one thing, good to see you, Francis, here this morning. Communication. I did actually email Mark to say that particularly with community and town councils, I'm wondering if there's any specific officer that could deal with these not complaints but concerns. I think we did at one stage, going back a few years, we did actually have an officer who was dedicated to answering questions from town and community council. I'm sure other members have got the same problems as I have, and at some meetings when these questions are raised, you try and protect officers, which I do, because I know they're working really, really hard in these difficult circumstances, but very often it feels as if, oh, it's just words from me and not really, actual what's going on the ground. And I would appreciate if it could be considered at some stage or other, Francis. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chair, would you be okay if I just come back in shortly?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Webb. Lovely to see you too. I wonder whether, Chair, it would be of interest for a member of the committee to be part of that conversation with myself and other colleagues as we start to work our way through that, because I think that would be really valuable to have that input into how we review and refresh how that customer engagement piece works. If somebody from the committee would be willing to put some time aside to join us in that discussion.
Yes,
I would. Thank you. Thank you.
There we are. We have a volunteer as well. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. Right, Councillor Easton, you wanted to come back in about with a quick question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Francis. COVID has been a problem for the last 12 months, but our staff sickness, our average days lost to staff sickness have gone down. Have we included isolation days and things like that, which are tied up the COVID in our figures, or are the figures of sickness not being truly related when people are working from home?
I can provide a brief explanation based on the performance indicator that you see in front of you, Councillor Easton. Sickness that has been recorded for COVID-19 has only been down to actual COVID-related illness, so not down to shielding or non-symptomatic self-isolating. So the figure is just down to sickness, nothing more broad than that.
So how has that figure, which we don't have, affected the efficiency of the organisation when people are shielding? If shielding and not what are not included in the sickness figures, how do you relate that to work performance?
I don't know, to be honest, Councillor. I'm not quite sure what the mechanism has been within HR for recording the shielding information. I can certainly look into it and perhaps feedback to you if that would help. It's not something I have to hand. Apologies.
Yeah, I think that'll be useful, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at this in September, the coronavirus
Yes.
strategy, so that can fit neatly into that
Great, thank you.
discussion then in September when we have it on our agenda. Okay, thank you. Right, okay, so that concludes the questions for item 4, performance reporting. So my thanks to Emma and the officers for your report and your answers, your responses. I mean, we've been looking at this report to consider the Council's progress in meeting its 5 priority goals as set out in our corporate plan. And we do recognise that the pandemic has led to some delays on projects and some work having been paused temporarily as the Council focuses its attention on delivering the key services in challenging times. And as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at the coronavirus strategy in September. We have it on the Strong Communities agenda, so we will have a detailed analysis of the response to the pandemic, which has been referred to many times in this report, and that will be on the 30th of September. I thank you for answering the questions and those that we're going to receive, because obviously due to the technical issues, some will be submitted at a later date and we can all be included in the response to those. So once again, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. And I would like to say that there haven't been any specific recommendations, so I'm content that the committee is satisfied with the performance of the services.
Chair, before we move on, Emma suggested one of the members of the committee join her in this subgroup. Can I?
Yes, Councillor Easton, Councillor Webb offered to do it.
Right, okay, I support Councillor Webb. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
We had a volunteer straight away.
Yeah.
So we don't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much once again. So we'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 5, budget monitoring. And we have officers with us this morning, and Jonathan Davis, you're going to present this to us, I understand. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Chair and members. Jonathan Davis, Acting Assistant Head of Finance here at Monmouthshire. Had a few sound issues myself this morning, Chair, so bear with me if I do break up, but hopefully that's been sorted now. I think the last 10 minutes or so has been okay. Yeah, so the report in front of you details the outturn report for the 2021 financial year. Members by now will be well aware of the overall outturn position, which was presented to Cabinet on the 9th of June. and I'm not intending to go through the full detailed report and more to highlight the specific areas relating to this committee. But at a headline level, we saw significant improvement towards year end. We had late receipt of grant funding from Welsh Government, totaling nearly £4 million. And alongside that, many services weren't operating fully during the year. So savings were therefore made in the areas of supplies and services, fees, accommodation and transport. And also alongside that, we held significant staff vacancies across many services, which contributed to the overall surplus. So that surplus for the whole authority was just over £4 million, and that was used to replenish earmarked reserves to allow for the future risks and pressures coming forward. As we move into a year which is just as challenging for the authority financially as we look to recover from the pandemic. So in terms of the areas that are specific to this committee, that starts on, I think, 76 of the overall pack that you've got in front of you today, and table 2 there highlights all of those services within the SCOM portfolio. At an overall level for SCOM, you'll see an overall surplus of £752,000, but that's a little misleading because the unbudgeted contribution to reserve that I mentioned at the outset of just over £4 million is included within that. So when you take that off, the overall surplus for the SCOM portfolio comes to £4.8 million. And there's a few main areas which I'll just highlight making up that surplus. So planning and housing had a surplus of just over £500,000, mainly due to staff vacancies, savings on fees, and increased budgeted rental receipts. The legal department had a surplus of just over £100,000 due to staff vacancies being held. Significantly, the finance section had a surplus of £755,000, and that was mainly due to some significant senior finance vacancies being held, alongside some unbudgeted grants for administrative support. So where we administered the business support grants on behalf of Welsh Government, we were given grant funding to administer that, and that allowed us to offset core budget for the service. Then 2 other large items making up that large surplus. Corporate financing costs were £600,000 less than budget, so that's borrowing costs and interest payable on our loans. They were significantly lower than expected, purely down to the market during the year being suppressed due to the economic conditions. And finally, the late receipt of Welsh Government grants that I mentioned at the outset is many of those were reflected within the corporate portfolio and held centrally, so they would have been shown as an unbudgeted surplus here in the SCOM portfolio. So those are the items at a headline level. I think the challenge moving forward for us, and it's a finance section where we've just finished month 2 for this financial year. The challenge for all services is how they look to return to a more normal operating conditions. How that demand coming back on stream and the changing demand in many cases, how that's going to be managed, especially in light of the significant staff vacancies that I've mentioned being held. So that's a huge challenge for services really to manage as things come back on stream. Chair, I'll leave it there in terms of the detail, but I know we've got officers on the call today, and Stacey's here from the finance section to answer any specific questions for some of those services. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, we do have some questions. So Councillor Webb would like to ask you something.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much for this report, Jonathan. Thank you very much indeed. A lot of it is a bit beyond me, but thank you anyway. I'm interested in the collaboration with other councils, and see that for the audit manager we share with Newport. Are there any other areas that we share with other councils? Because I think it's really important if it's a possibility in other areas. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, there's quite a few examples throughout the authority where we've got shared service arrangements. I think probably the most recent example would be the procurement service and the decision to amalgamate with Cardiff Council in going forward with part of that procurement service. It's something where if there's a benefit to be had from service delivery, that's certainly something we'd look to explore. I think it's important to note as well that where we do collaborate with other councils and other bodies, we are able to then capitalise that cost, and it allows us to, where necessary, meet the cost from capital resources rather than it be a burden on the revenue account. So certainly, as I mentioned, in terms of procurement, that's something we're looking to do for the current financial year, and I think a £208,000 pressure that would have been in the revenue budget is being capitalised and funded that way. So yeah, there's quite a few advantages to looking to do so, and where it benefits service delivery, we'd certainly look to do that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Councillor Easton, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But I'd like to come back on what Jonathan just said about shared resources. Councillor Webb asked a question about an individual officer who's shared salaries with another authority, but the collaboration between Cardiff on procurement, that didn't include shared salaries, doesn't it? Does it?
That included a transfer of the service and secondment of officers, Councillor, to Cardiff, and we would then pay a fee for that service effectively. That's how that one will work. So in effect, we pay the salary, but it's just through a fee arrangement rather than directly. So okay, those officers are seconded.
Okay, thank you, Chair. But my question really is about the pressures that you've got within the organisation. I know you've got lots of pressures within children's services, very big pressures. It just doesn't go away. But look at the pressures among the passenger transport unit and the civil parking enforcement, which are sort of external. Are they income sources? Well, I suppose they are. Those two particular areas of pressure between the PTU, because I know it's meant that we've had to look at different sort of buses for taking kids to school, and then we brought in the new scheme of civil parking. Has that got off the ground, really, the civil parking, and have this PTU pressures able to be resolved in the next number of years? Thank you. We lost Jonathan.
Happy for you to answer when you're ready.
Yeah.
There's a bit
Thanks,
of, I think,
Chair.
as well.
There is. I'll have to invite officers to comment on that one. I'm not close enough to the PTU service or the civil parking to know the answer to that. But I don't know if they've resolved their technical issues and can offer a view.
Thank you, Chair. I know that Stacey's on the call as well, and Stacey's our accountant that supports us on the PTU service. I'm sure she'll be able to add in some commentary as well. But the PTU service. and we've got Mark as well as there in the background to come in on the CP, which would be great. Mark will bring you in a moment if you can still hear us. The PTO service has got a number of pressures that make up the impact on the service area. We have seen increased maintenance costs, we've had additional staffing costs, we've got increased pupil numbers that require transport, and the modelling of those numbers is very, very complex in terms of applications coming in for homeschool transport each year. Often we get late applications, and often it's very difficult for us to predict what pupils will be going where, so that can be quite a challenge as well. Stacey, did you want to add anything else to that?
Thank you, Francis. Chair. PTO have done a lot of work at the moment. We're looking at resolving and putting a recovery plan in place for next year. Last year we did receive a substantial amount of Welsh Government funding that did help mitigate some of the issues within the services, but they still exist. We're looking at the current staffing structure that we've got in place at the moment and doing a comparison between internal and external operations to see if there's any leeway there to reduce costs moving forward. But as Francis mentioned, it does mainly relate to fluctuations in numbers. So in September, when we get the new numbers coming in, that will show the real focus of where we need to go moving forward. So in September, there'll be another review, but hopefully there are things that we can still change and make progress in and move forward to make that budget more manageable in future.
But it's also affected our ability for private contracts.
It has, mainly because of private contracts that's been reduced recently over COVID, which was funded by Welsh Government. So the loss of income for private hire, we've reduced our private hire because of COVID and the situation that we're in. We are now starting to get back into the market of private hire, and we are getting jobs in that end. So hopefully income as the year goes on will steadily progress, but there is always that tipping balance between ensuring that we've got the staffing structure to deliver our core services and children to school. And obviously the first point of call will be picking up like swimming lessons when school starts, that. So that's sort of private hire rather than open market private hire and commercial. But there are jobs starting to come in, and we are in a position that we can develop the service, that we can pick up the private hire as we move forward. So we'll be watching our market really closely and developing our service to match the needs. At the moment, we've reduced our service as much as we need to because that income generation opportunities weren't there because of COVID. But as they develop, we can hopefully open up the service again and produce income from private hire, because that does offset our costs overall as well when we generate those at profit margins.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Stacey. Is anybody able to answer the question about civil parking enforcement?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's Mark.
Oh, you're with us. Welcome. You made it.
I'm afraid, so I won't risk the camera going on or I'll lose it all again. Yeah, in terms of civil parking enforcement, its service has been in place for just under 2 years, but to be honest, we haven't had a level run at it yet, as ridiculous as that sounds, over 2 years. So between staff vacancies, sickness, floods and the pandemic, we've only probably had about a 3-month stint of full staffing and full activity. So there's a definite shortfall in income at the moment against the budget target, and that's something that we just started a review on to see if the target's realistic in the first place, and just understand a bit better when we're on an even keel going forwards, which with the staffing in place now and the pandemic drawing to a close, we can get in place on. But as you're probably aware, we weren't enforcing during the flood events because staff were redeployed to other areas during the pandemic. Some of the team were redeployed to things like community meals and track and trace. So yeah, we're only just really getting the service bedded in many ways and on an even footing. So we're reviewing the income and how it's working. I think it's probably one to keep a watch on via the select committee, Chair, if you want, and we can report back during the coming year.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Easton. Thank you, Mark. Right, I don't have any other indication anybody wants to ask any more questions.
Chairman, not to ask any questions. I'm sorry, I've had trouble accessing, so I've just joined you. It's Val Smith. So if I can help in any way.
Well, Councillor Smith, we've all had technical issues this morning, so you're not alone. I know that doesn't make you...
That doesn't make me feel any better.
No, I know, but...
Thanks, Chairman.
Make sure you come to order this afternoon.
Oh, welcome to that, yes.
Anyway, I'm glad you managed to join us.
Thank you.
Right, we're just concluding the scrutiny of the revenue and capital outturn. Some of the questions I wanted to ask have already been asked, I'm pleased to say, so you've covered those for me with regard to the PTU and waste recycling and the civil parking enforcement things are all really, really interested in. The format of the accounts, please, could we have, I know it's been mentioned in other scrutiny committees, could we please have some further training on reading accounts? I totally appreciate that every organisation, there are lots of packages, lots of ways of putting accounts together, and our accountants know them thoroughly, but we don't, and sometimes it's very difficult for us to follow through the accounts. And I mean, I'm quite used to reading accounts, but I do find these quite baffling. I have to go through them several times. So if we could have training, it could be two-way, because we could then possibly mention to you what would be easier, how it would be easier for us to read through, especially when you're going from select committee to select committee. And I appreciate you've got to focus on different things. So it hopefully it would work both ways. So if I could put in a request for that, please. And I know it's been asked for elsewhere.
That's fine, Chair. I'll take that back and have a think about how we best approach that. I think the issue we obviously have is that, you know, this report encapsulates pretty much the performance of the whole authority, and it's quite hard sometimes to drill down on the smaller sections. So yeah, I'll take those comments back, and like you say, yeah, we've had similar feedback from the other select, so we'll look to collate all that and come back to you.
Thank you very much, because if we can help with the language of the accounts that we can better understand it, that'd be good. All right, well, thank you very much for this report this morning and the detailed report on the revenue and capital outturn. We're very grateful for the concise explanation within the report of the key budgetary areas, and this morning for answering the questions regarding collaboration, the clarification about that, the PTU recovery plan, and there's going to be a review of civil parking. I'm sure some of these things will probably be discussed in September when we're looking at the coronavirus strategy. As I mentioned, it'd be nice if we could have some more training on the analysis in due course. Obviously, you've got a lot to do, but if you could just take that on board as you've willingly agreed to do. So our role is to satisfy ourselves that effective budget monitoring is taking place, and as a committee we feel fairly confident that this is the case. So the reference to the winter storms and the significant implications on the financial position regarding COVID, challenging service areas, we've touched on that, but one of the most challenging obviously is children's services, which we all appreciate comes under the CYP, but all of these things have an effect, and so we would particularly like to thank you for providing us with this overview on these financial implications of the COVID pandemic, and we hope it will help us in our scrutiny of the pandemic response in September. But I appreciate the workload you're all officers and appreciate your time this morning and for coming and presenting this to us, and for the ongoing hard work for every department in this council. I'm sure all members would like me to thank all officers who are involved in our recovery at the moment, because we've had challenging days and we've got more to come. So we really do appreciate all that you've done for us and for the good people.
Here, Chairman.
There we are. All right. So thank you very much. We've overcome the technical difficulties in our own way, and that's what we've had to do throughout the pandemic, is adapt as we work through things. So thank you very much indeed. So we will now go on to item 6 to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody got comments?
Can I speak, please, just quickly?
Yeah,
Chairman, please? Just a couple of things. I don't know. It's not really to do with the accuracy of the minutes, and I apologise for that. But it's just attendance. Councillor Clark, Councillor Guppy. Luckily, Councillor Smith has joined us, and Councillor Roger Harris wasn't at the last meeting either. And I'm just wondering if he realises he's on this committee. It's just something that we were pretty narrow for being core this morning, and I'm just wondering whether a gentle reminder. I know the communication problems this morning as well, but attendance is a problem, and we're only just about there this morning. And I'm just wondering, it's such an interesting meeting as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a really brilliant, and thank you for chairing it so well. But I think a gentle reminder, understanding the problems that they might have, might be appropriate at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Good suggestion. Yes, I know you weren't able to join us at the beginning of this meeting, but we did receive apologies from Councillor Clark, so he's okay with knowing he's on the committee. But yes, it would be useful to send a reminder out to. Oh well, Councillor Guppy was with us last time, so it's really Councillor Harris, isn't it? You mentioned it. Perhaps a gentle reminder. So, are you happy to accept the minutes otherwise, members?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat bar as well, but we're all right. Right, so we've got our forward work plan, work programme.
Can I come in here, please?
Yes, of course, Councillor.
Can we have training budget monitoring on that work plan? Do you think that's appropriate, Robert? Training with regard to budget monitoring, would that come under our work programme?
Well, we've just asked Mr. Davis if he would be prepared to organise some training for us and other scrutiny committees, but I mean, I'm happy to put it on, but I think this is something that's going to involve other scrutiny committees.
And also the subgroup regarding communications, perhaps.
Sorry, the subgroup that we mentioned earlier, that when you're going to talk to.
Yes.
You would like that on the forward work programme?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that. But we will obviously leave it to Hazel and Robert to organise where these fit in.
Of course.
We already have quite a big item on the September work programme. I'm just trying to bring mine up. Right, strong communities forward work programme. All these different screens. Don't know which way to look sometimes. Right. There will be also a discussion with Councillor Smith. There'll be a discussion with yourself and our scrutiny manager and team regarding the burials and cremations, your report. Hopeful that could come on this September agenda also, along with the coronavirus strategy. All right, you still with us, Councillor Smith?
Yes, I am with you, Chairman. No, thank you very much. Can I just ask as well, having missed the beginning of the meeting, I think an issue was probably raised. A question was raised on Llanbadach flooding.
Yes. If I could just come in there, because we didn't receive it in good time. It needs 3 working days, clear working days for us to be able to respond. And the officers who were here today wouldn't have been the same officers who would have responded to this. But we had a similar matter last time when we received a question too late to include in our agenda today. So that is going to be dealt with by the officers. It's going to be a response, and we will all be included in the response.
Well, I can just update you, like Chairman, because
we haven't actually discussed it, Councillor Smith. We haven't actually discussed it. We're going to leave it to officers. We're not discussing it today because it's too late.
That's fine, but I have actually had an update on what is happening, and the Community Council would also have received that update, which I felt satisfactory. So thank you very much, Chairman. Thanks.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So that leaves us our, that was the September meeting. Then we were looking for November. I've written it down. We could actually, Councillor Smith, we could ask for an update on flooding in November if members wish. We'll see how this works out regarding the response.
It's an ongoing project. It's much bigger, so it's something that's in the pipeline and is being worked on by other agencies as well as Monmouth. So
yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So if it's possible, we could put that on November 1. However, in January, we will have a significant piece of work on dog controls. And we now have the other items that have been suggested this morning by Councillor Webb. So we will look at those, ask our scrutiny officers to look at that for us. And that just leaves us to the date and time of the next meeting, which is, as I mentioned earlier, September. And I'm just looking to see, I did mention it was on the scrutiny. Robert, do you have the date of the September meeting to hand, or anybody got it to hand?
30th, on it, 30th.
That's right. I didn't want to say the wrong date. I did write it down earlier. Right. So thank you all very much indeed for your attendance this morning, and enjoy the rest of the day. The sun is shining, and I look forward to seeing everybody in September when we will be looking at this coronavirus strategy. In the meantime, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much
for your contribution.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Chair. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.